I always find it so ironic how society causes its own problems. I mean, that could be a dozen topics right there to talk about. But what I want to talk about specifically in this video is that the only real conversations you can have about anything are behind closed doors. Because if you were to talk about anything legitimate in a public outing, to public scrutiny, that is, you would most likely be condemned, no matter which side of the aisle you might be of any given subject matter, for that matter. That's what I would say. Now, surely, um, a lot of people would say, oh, well, if you're for this or for that, i.e., things that the mainstream media supports, well, then you'll have less problems in public. And maybe that's true to some degree, but you will still be condemned in the minds of the people. You may not be condemned, um, shall we say, out loud, but you'll still be publicly condemned, right? And likewise, vice versa, if you support the thing that most normies and most of the media don't agree with, then you will be very publicly condemned as well, but more outwardly, more out loud. you know, basically, you can only say the quiet part behind closed doors, no matter what your actual beliefs are. So nobody can actually be real on either side. I recently subscribed to a YouTuber who probably would disagree with most anything I would say, actually. I won't name him or anything. And I'm not, I don't listen to him for any other reason than the fact that I actually do relate to him, despite him being pretty much probably morally opposed to anything that I believe in, at least to some degree. Although I find it ironic, a lot of the people that I think would say they oppose my viewpoints on any given subject, we probably actually agree. We just look at the problem in two different ways, right? And you could say, well, that's an obvious statement. Let me be a little more specific. I want to help people, believe it or not. It's just that the help that I think people need is not the help that other people think they need. right? That's about as specific as I'll get, at least on YouTube here. Um, and so, a lot of people who say they're feeling lonely, the reason they're feeling lonely is that we live in a society of masks and I can't talk. Masks and bureaucracy. You can't have the type of connection you're seeking except for behind closed doors, and that is not natural. That's not normal. That's not something that humans are made to do. Humans are not made to necessarily wear masks all the time. I certainly think humans are capable of, uh, I guess, what you would consider white lying of a personality. I think humans were very capable of that, and that can be natural and normal. But to do it all the time is not normal. And I think that all of us carry a great deal of shame because the conversations that we have in private, if they were made public, would lead us to being ostracized and disowned and condemned. And that is not natural. That is not natural. Disagreement among the tribe is not unnatural, but disownment from the tribe due to disagreement of at least most things, especially of ideas, is rather unnatural, I would say. I'm sure there's a line in there to be drawn, but I would argue it's a very fine line. Um, I don't think that discourse among the populace was something unnatural to humans for most of human history per se, outside of a few specific things like don't shit talk the king. But past shit talking the king, you could probably shit talk most anything in public and nobody would really bat an eye. Um, or at least it would be quietly condemning you rather than publicly condemning you. And most of us fear the latter rather than the former, right? And so I think that's why a lot of people suffer from loneliness is you can't really talk. This kind of goes into the need of why everyone says you should go to therapy. right? The reason people say to go to therapy is because the therapist is about the only place you really can talk about almost anything without being ostracized or condemned, right? Because you pay them to not do that. And I say almost anything because there are things that you would tell a therapist that would obligate them to reveal it to public authorities. But I digress. The point is that there's a lot more freedom in a therapy session to talk than there is to talk to the average person around you, which is not natural. That is an incredibly unnatural state for humans to live in. And I want to emphasize one last time before I end the video that this is politically neutral. This is not, um, I think that ultimately, while we see that the left is a lot more publicly accepted, you still see condemnation of the left online publicly. That's a very common thing you still see on YouTube. Despite all the censorship that YouTube does, it does not censor that condemnation. And I think that is very intentional because while the left can certainly say more things, the left is still condemned. Maybe not as much as the right for sure, but they are still experiencing that social shame, if you will. It's about the only social shame that you can really have in the world. I have another video that I may or may not have uploaded at this point, sitting around, where I talk about the lack of social shame, although that is a different type of social shame that I'm talking about in this video, which is more of a lack of inability to be honest. You cannot be honest in this world, and that is highly unnatural. So I'll end it there. Thanks for listening.